I'm Olivia Marshall. I'm 33 years old. And this story still makes my hands tremble. My brother's wedding day was supposed to be a celebration. A family coming together. A bride walking down the aisle. A fresh start. But for me, it became the moment everything unraveled. Let me start from the beginning. I come from a family where appearances were everything. Dad was a respected professor. Mom was a socialite turned wellness coach who spent more time on Instagram than she ever did with me. And my younger brother, Nathan. He was the golden boy, the achiever, the perfect son. Me, I was the afterthought. The one they never took seriously. The one they barely mentioned in Christmas letters unless it was to say Olivia's still figuring things out. Which wasn't even true. I had built a quiet, fulfilling life with my husband, Ethan. He was my anchor. Calm, thoughtful, fiercely protective. We didn't have the flashiest house or the biggest careers, but we had love. At least I thought we did. So when Nathan got engaged to Emily, a sweet girl who had no idea what family she was marrying into, I hoped the wedding might be a turning point. I was wrong. The morning of the ceremony, we arrived at the estate. A massive venue in upstate New York, all stone walls and draped florals. Every corner screamed opulence. As Ethan and I walked in, I noticed my name wasn't on the official seating chart. "Oh, you're at table 14, the planner said without looking up. "Table 14, in the back, with the DJ's equipment and the spare chairs. Nathan's college roommate had a better seat than me. Even the florist got a spot closer to the stage." I felt the sting, but I smiled. I always smiled. When we found our table, my parents passed by without saying a word, not even a nod. "Maybe they're just stressed," Ethan whispered. But I knew better. They were never stressed when it came to Nathan. Only when it came to hiding their disappointment in me. During the ceremony, I watched them beam as Nathan recited his vows. Mom cried. Dad held her hand. They looked like the picture of a proud, supportive family. I felt like a ghost. Later at the reception, they gave speeches. My mom told stories of Nathan's childhood, about how he always protected his little sister. Everyone laughed. I did too, but for a different reason. Protected me. Nathan once sold my laptop for concert tickets. He read my private diary aloud to his friends at 14. And when I told my parents, they called it harmless fun. Still, I clapped. When dinner was served, Ethan leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" I nodded. What else could I do? But then, it happened. As the band started playing the first dance, Ethan's hand suddenly tightened on mine. He wasn't looking at the couple on the dance floor. He was looking across the room directly at my parents. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. "What is it?" I asked. "We have to go," he said under his breath. What? I blinked. "Ethan, it's Nathan's wedding." He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up, walked over to my parents, and placed something on their table. It was an envelope. A thick one. Dad froze. Mom's eyes widened. Ethan turned back to me and said, "Live. Now." Everyone around us stopped. Heads turned. The music kept playing, but the atmosphere shifted like a curtain being pulled. My heart pounded. I followed Ethan out the door, confused, breathless. When we got to the car, I finally asked, "What was that? What's going on?" He didn't speak until we were miles away. Then he pulled over, turned to me, and said words that shattered every assumption I had about my own family. "Your parents tried to ruin us, but I ruined their plan first." My breath hitched. "What are you talking about?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out copies of legal documents. Bank records, signed statements. "Your dad," he said, "has been laundering money through your name. For years. And your mother knew." I stared at him. No, that can't be true. They used your social security number. Took out business loans. Filed paperwork while you were in college." My world spun. Ethan continued, "I found out 3 months ago. I've been working with a lawyer since. We traced everything. And today, just before dinner, I got confirmation. That's why we had to leave." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Everything made sense now. The way my parents kept their distance. How they always dismissed me as unstable or emotional. They were laying groundwork to discredit me, to protect themselves. I leaned back in my seat, silent, trembling. My husband reached for my hand. "I've got you, Liv, and now they're going to pay." The night wasn't over. It was only beginning, and I had no idea how deep the betrayal really went. But I was about to find out. The car was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the turn signal as we merged onto the freeway. I stared out the window, watching trees blur into darkness, my heart still pounding from Ethan's words. "They stole my identity," I finally whispered, still unable to fully process. Ethan didn't look at me. His voice was low, steady. "They didn't just steal it. They used it, abused it, and they left you holding the bag." "How long?" I asked, a lump forming in my throat. "Years, since college." I shook my head, but I never noticed anything. No calls, no debt collectors. "They made sure you wouldn't," Ethan said. "They paid off just enough. Shifted accounts. Made you think the credit hiccups were just random. And when anything came close to the surface, they blamed it on your poor budgeting. Made you feel ashamed." He paused. "Liv, they gaslit you for over a decade." The weight of those words settled like lead in my stomach. I'd always felt a strange shame I couldn't explain. Little things. Rejected applications, denied credit cards, employers quietly pulling back job offers. I thought it was me. I thought I was the problem. I was never the problem. I was their scapegoat. By the time we pulled into our driveway, I was shaking. My knees buckled slightly as I stepped out of the car. Ethan steadied me. Inside the house, he laid the documents across our dining table. Pages and pages of evidence. Accounts I never opened. Signatures I never signed. Phone numbers I didn't recognize. Companies that didn't exist. My name was everywhere. My debt, theirs. I sank into a chair, hands trembling. "How did you find this?" I asked. Ethan hesitated. "It started when I noticed a strange transaction linked to one of your old college email accounts. That email had been used to open a consulting firm under your name. That firm was receiving massive wire transfers, then immediately transferring out to a company registered under your father's name." I swallowed, hard. I contacted a financial investigator. He traced it all back. Your parents' names didn't appear at first. They were smart. Layers of shell corporations, but eventually, it all pointed to them. He placed a photo in front of me, an image of my father shaking hands with a man identified as a silent partner in a Miami real estate scheme. The signature beneath the deal, mine. I nearly vomited. But why, I asked? Why would they do this to me? "Because they needed someone to take the fall," Ethan said. "Someone they could control. Someone they could discredit." "And Nathan?" I asked bitterly. "He has no idea," Ethan said. "Your brother's oblivious, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's benefiting from the money." I pressed my hands to my face, tears streaming now. Every warm smile, every birthday gift, every polite holiday dinner. It was all a lie. "I was just a pawn," I whispered. Ethan crouched in front of me. "No, you were their shield, but now you have armor." I met his eyes. "What do we do?" He took a deep breath. "We file the lawsuit. We freeze the accounts. We expose everything." "Won't it destroy them?" "Yes." "Will it destroy me?" "No, because this time, Liv, you're not alone." We spent the rest of the night scanning more documents, uploading files to our lawyer's secure server, and drafting a full disclosure. By 3 a.m., I was exhausted, hollowed out, and furious. But beneath the pain, something stirred. Power. Clarity. Revenge. The next morning, I woke to dozens of texts from family. "Why did you storm out?" "Your behavior was completely inappropriate." "What was that envelope, Olivia?" Even Nathan messaged me. "Please don't ruin my wedding memories with whatever drama this is." I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a single message to the family group chat. "You might want to talk to a lawyer, preferably today." 10 minutes later, my father called. I didn't answer. He called again. And again. Then, silence. Ethan came into the room holding his phone. "They've seen the documents." I nodded. I wasn't ready to hear their excuses, their fake tears, their desperate gaslighting. I needed space. I needed time. But most of all, I needed to win. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about identity, about dignity, about reclaiming the years they stole from me. I walked over to the mirror in the hallway and stared at myself. No longer the invisible daughter. No longer the family failure. My hands still shook, but with adrenaline now. With purpose. I wasn't running. Not anymore. The day after our revelation felt surreal. Like I had stepped out of the shadowy fog of my family's illusion and was finally seeing the world for what it really was. A battlefield. And I wasn't just some forgotten foot soldier, I was the storm they never saw coming. I sat in my home office, the sun barely rising, fingers shaking as I drafted the first official statement for my attorney. Every line, every detail, every timestamp Ethan had discovered was like a dagger pressed to the throat of my past. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mom. "Olivia, please call us. This has gone too far. You don't understand what you're doing." I didn't respond. Then another. "Don't ruin this family because of some misunderstanding. Your father is heartbroken." I almost laughed. Heartbroken. The same man who used me as financial collateral, who signed my name onto debt like it was a napkin at a barbecue. No, I wouldn't fall for that again. Ethan stepped into the room, coffee in hand. He saw the texts. "Still trying to guilt you." I nodded. "They want to twist this. Make me the villain." He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Let them. The truth speaks louder." But did it? My entire life had been rewritten by their lies. Their deception. Their comfort at the cost of my autonomy. I didn't just need justice, now I needed to rebuild. That afternoon, our lawyer filed the lawsuit. Identity theft, fraud, misappropriation of funds, defamation through falsified financial records. The moment it was submitted, I felt something I hadn't in years: relief. Not because the battle was over, but because finally, I wasn't hiding. I was fighting. News spread faster than I expected. By evening, I received a call from an old high school friend. "Liv, is it true?" Apparently, my mother had begun calling everyone, spinning her own version of the story. "She said you're trying to extort them," my friend whispered. I didn't flinch. Then she should prepare her bank statements. But what hurt more than the lies was the silence. Nathan. Not a single word from him. No defense, no apology, nothing. I had stood by him through everything. His failed business, his DUI, even the time he cheated on his fiancée and begged me not to tell Mom. I had protected him more than I'd ever protected myself. And now he stood with them. Typical. That night, Ethan and I reviewed the legal plan. "We can push for asset freezes by Friday," he said. "Once that happens, they won't have access to the shell corporations anymore." I nodded. Good. But inside, I was spiraling. This wasn't just a legal war, it was emotional trench warfare. Every memory, every childhood moment now tainted. Had any of it ever been real? I remembered Christmas mornings, how Dad would laugh as he handed Nathan the latest gadgets while I got socks. How Mom praised his potential while telling me I was too sensitive. I remembered the college rejection they never explained. The apartment lease that mysteriously vanished. The credit cards I was denied. It all made sense now. The dots connected in blood-red ink. They didn't just hurt me, they erased me. But not anymore. I walked into our closet and pulled out the old journal I kept in college. Pages filled with confusion questions, self-doubt. I tore out the last page and wrote a new entry. "They tried to erase me. I became permanent." The next day, Ethan arranged a meeting with a media liaison. "Once this hits the courts, it'll be public," he said. "We should control the narrative." Public. The thought made me sick, but also alive. If exposing them publicly was the only way to burn down their mask, so be it. By the third day, a major business blog ran the headline, "Florida Harris accuses parents of multi-million-dollar fraud scheme." I wasn't ready for what followed. Reporters called. Messages flooded in. Some supported me, many didn't. "Ungrateful daughter bites the hand that fed her. She's just jealous her brother's wedding was better." "Drama queen goes legal for attention." I tried to ignore it, but it stung. Ethan reminded me they don't know the truth, but the court will. Still, I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I scrolled through my phone and found an old video of Dad teaching me to ride a bike. His voice was gentle. He caught me when I fell. That man didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. The next morning, I got a voicemail. Nathan. His voice was cold, measured. Live. You've made your point. We all get it, you're angry. But this is cruel. You're destroying our family. I gripped the phone tightly. I almost deleted it. But then I replayed it. Again and again. You're destroying our family. No, Nathan. They did. When they stole my future, my identity, my choices, they destroyed me first. And now I was rebuilding, brick by brick, word by word, truth by truth. The next time they saw me, I wouldn't be the forgotten daughter. I'd be their reckoning. I never imagined the fourth day would be the one that finally broke me. It began with silence. No texts, no calls. For the first time in weeks, my phone was still. You'd think that would be comforting, but it wasn't. Silence from people who used to control your every move is more haunting than noise. It feels like they're preparing their next strike. I got out of bed early and wandered into the kitchen where Ethan was already dressed, laptop open, coffee in hand. "You've got a letter," he said, sliding a thick envelope across the island. It wasn't from my parents, not Nathan either. It was from their lawyer. I didn't hesitate. I ripped it open and felt the bile rise in my throat. They were suing me for defamation. My own parents, the same ones who took out loans in my name, forged documents, lied to my face for years. Now they had the audacity to accuse me of ruining their reputations. I stared at the letter, my hands shaking. I couldn't breathe. Ethan took it from me and scanned the contents. This is pure intimidation. They don't want this going public. They're panicking. They should be, I whispered, barely able to speak. I walked out to the patio, the Florida breeze brushing against my face, the scent of salt water in the air. But it didn't calm me. Not today. A lawsuit from my own family. What kind of people do that? And then I remembered the kind of people who smile in your face while stealing behind your back. The kind who toast at your birthday while hiding betrayal in their pockets. My phone rang. A blocked number. I answered. "Olivia, it's Aunt May." Her voice was fragile, as though each word she said had to be coaxed from her throat. "I saw the papers. I had no idea they did this to you." I couldn't respond. "I remember when you were little," she continued, "and your mom would yell if you so much as touched Nathan's toys. She said girls didn't need as much." A pause. "You were always quieter. I think they mistook that for weakness." She hesitated. "I want you to know I believe you." Tears fell fast and hot, because someone finally said it. Someone finally saw me. After the call, I stood in front of the mirror. I didn't look like the girl they raised anymore. My eyes weren't empty. My posture wasn't apologetic. My voice, when I finally spoke again, was no longer trembling. That afternoon, Ethan arranged a video call with our legal team. "We're not just defending you now," he said. "We're going to expose everything. Their paper trail, their offshore accounts, every lie they've ever buried." The plan was brutal, but necessary. They wanted war. They were about to get one. I spent the evening going through storage bins of old documents, bank statements, contracts, receipts, letters from my father that now felt like written gaslighting. Then I found it. A letter of acceptance from Stanford. Dated years ago. It was never opened. I stared at it in disbelief. They never told me. They never gave it to me. I could have gone. My life could have been completely different. My chest tightened with rage. It was more than the fraud, more than the betrayal. They stole my dreams before I ever had the chance to chase them. I held the letter to my heart and made a silent vow I would not let them bury one more part of me. That night, Ethan and I stayed up till 2 a.m. building a case. We laid out every document in the living room like pieces of a broken puzzle. By the end, the picture was undeniable. Fraud, deception, manipulation. It wasn't just a lawsuit anymore, it was a legacy unraveling. Around 3 a.m., I stepped outside and stared up at the moon. "I'm not who I was," I whispered. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. I wanted freedom. The kind that comes not from money, but from knowing the truth is finally louder than the lie. The next morning, I received a message from a local journalist. Ms. Carter, we're running a feature story on your family's case. Would you like to comment? For a moment, I hesitated. Then I replied, yes, because this wasn't just my story anymore. It was every daughter who had been told to stay silent. Every woman who was gaslit into submission. Every person who was erased to elevate someone else. The headline went live that evening. She was the forgotten daughter. Now she's their greatest threat. And for once, it felt true. I wasn't their mistake anymore. I was their reckoning. I stood at the edge of the patio that morning, clutching the newspaper with trembling fingers. The breeze danced across the water, but my heart beat like war drums beneath my chest. There I was, front page top right. My face not smiling, but strong. Unapologetically mine. She was the forgotten daughter. Now she's their greatest threat. Ethan came up behind me and placed his hands gently on my shoulders. You're brave, he whispered. This is what standing up feels like. But I didn't feel brave. I felt like a hurricane caught mid-spin. I had just cracked the foundation my family built their lies on. Now I had to brace for the storm that would follow. And it didn't take long. The calls came within hours from old family friends, neighbors, even former classmates I hadn't heard from in years. Is it true? I always thought something was off. I never knew they treated you that way. Then came the voicemail from my mother. You selfish girl. You always wanted attention. Now you've embarrassed us in front of the whole world. Your father is sick over this. Sick. They ruined my future, lied, stole, gaslit me for years. But I'm the disgrace. I didn't delete the message. I kept it. Proof? Proof of who they still were even now. Later that day, the lawyer called. They want to settle, quietly, no court. I laughed. Actually laughed. No, I said. We're going public. There was a silence on the other end. Are you sure? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Let them squirm. I'm done living in their shadows. Ethan and I began preparing for the interviews. CNN, Vox, local networks. Everyone wanted to hear from the girl who went from exile to exposé. The night before the first interview, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the pool staring at my reflection. Not just what I looked like, but who I had become. I remembered the girl sitting at my brother's wedding stomach, tight with humiliation, as my family laughed and whispered about me behind their champagne glasses. I remembered the moment my father pointed to the door and shouted, "Get out!" And I remembered the quiet rage that followed. Now, here I was in a 45 million villa, surrounded by peace, love, and the truth. They took everything they could from me, but they couldn't take my voice. Not anymore. I looked at Ethan. What if this changes nothing? He reached over and took my hand. It already changed everything. You're not pretending anymore. The next day, I sat in a studio under bright lights, microphone clipped to my shirt, cameras rolling. Why now, the reporter asked. And I said without hesitation, because I got tired of pretending I was the problem. I told them about the fake loans, the stolen opportunities, the erased acceptance letter from Stanford, the way they built my brother up while burying me in silence. I didn't cry, not on camera. I cried later when the cameras stopped and the producer pulled me aside and said, I grew up like that too. Thank you. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my story. It was about everyone who never had the platform to scream back. The interview went viral within 24 hours. People began sending letters, messages, videos, telling me they felt seen, heard, understood for the first time. Even strangers on the street recognized me. You're the one with the villa, right? No. I was the one who finally said no. No to lies. No to guilt. No to being invisible. But of course, they didn't take it well. My parents doubled down, accused me of slander, called Ethan a gold digger, said I was mentally unstable. It was textbook narcissism. But I wasn't afraid anymore. For once, I had power, not the kind that comes from money or revenge, but the kind that comes from finally standing in your own light. Then came the moment I wasn't prepared for. A call from Nathan. My brother, the golden boy. The favorite. I didn't know he said voice shaking. I swear I didn't know everything. I said nothing. Olivia, I believed them. I really thought you were just distant. I let the silence settle before I answered. You didn't ask Nathan? You never asked. He sighed. Can I see you? My chest tightened. Could I forgive? Did I want to? Would it heal or reopen the wounds? I didn't know, but I said maybe, because growth is complicated. Healing isn't linear, and forgiveness, if it ever came, would be mine to give on my terms. That night, as I stood on the balcony overlooking the ocean, I realized something. I didn't need their approval. I didn't even need their apology. I just needed me. And after all the pain, the lies, the gaslighting, I had finally found her. The next few weeks were a blur, media interviews, email inboxes bursting with letters from survivors of emotional abuse, estranged siblings, forgotten daughters. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to thousands, maybe millions. And yet every time I read one of their messages, a hollow ache tugged inside me. Because the people I still wished would say, "We're sorry," never did. I guess some people only see what they want to. But I saw clearly now, especially the day the envelope arrived. It was pale blue, thick paper. My father's handwriting scrawled across the front. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for hours. What could he possibly say? Would it be more blame? Another attempt to twist things around and make me feel guilty. But when I finally unfolded the letter, I wasn't ready for what I read. He didn't apologize. No, he wrote, "Olivia, you were always too sensitive. You misinterpreted so much. We raised you the best we could. We thought you would understand one day that sacrifices were made for the greater good of the family. You were difficult, emotional. But I still love you, even if you can't see the bigger picture. Please stop. Please stop." Like I was a child throwing a tantrum, not a woman standing in her truth. I laughed bitterly. Then I cried. But this time, the tears weren't because I missed them. They were because I finally accepted they would never change. Some wounds never close because the person who cut you keeps pretending the knife didn't exist. That weekend, Ethan and I hosted a fundraiser at the villa. It was for young women seeking therapy and scholarships after being disowned or emotionally abused. The turnout was massive. Over 400 guests. Music, speeches, candles lit for those still finding their voices. Halfway through the event, a woman with silver hair approached me. Her eyes were wet. "You told my story," she whispered. "Just years later." I never got a villa, but I got my peace. I hugged her tightly. It wasn't about the villa. It never had been. It was about reclaiming identity. When everyone around you told you to shrink and you finally decide to rise. That night, I walked down to the ocean alone. No cameras, no headlines, just the waves, the stars, and my own breathing. And I spoke out loud. "I forgive you." Not to my father, not to my mother, but to the girl I used to be. I forgave her for staying too long, for believing the lies, for trying to earn love that was always conditional. She did her best with what she had, and she survived. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A new message from Nathan. "Can I come see you? I don't want anything. I just want to sit with you." Something cracked in me. I didn't know if it was hope or just old loyalty, but I said yes. When he arrived at the villa, he looked older, tired. No designer suit, no smug smile, just jeans, a plain shirt, and eyes that finally looked like they could see me. He sat down on the edge of the fountain and stared at the water. "I read the letter Dad sent you," he began. So he'd talked to them. "I told him he was wrong," he added. "For the first time in my life, I told him he was wrong." My throat tightened. Nathan continued. "I don't expect you to let me back in. I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it." I searched his face. He wasn't here to manipulate or convince. He was here because guilt had finally pierced privilege. "I wanted you at my wedding," he added softly. "But they told me you'd only ruin it." I exhaled. "They said the same about you my whole life," I replied. We sat in silence for a long time. He didn't ask for forgiveness, and I didn't give it. Not yet. But something shifted. Sometimes healing starts not with an apology, but with honesty. Nathan left after an hour. No promises, no drama, And I stood in the marble foyer of my villa, barefoot quiet, and more myself than I'd ever been. Later that week, a package arrived. It was from my grandmother's old lawyer. Inside, a locket, one I thought was lost years ago. Inside it was a note in Grandma's cursive. To my Olivia, never forget who you are. Tears slipped down my cheeks, because now finally I wouldn't. I was not the forgotten child. I was not the problem. I was not a burden. I was Olivia, and I had arrived. I couldn't stop touching the locket. For days, it never left my neck. It felt like armor, like something small and shining that had outlived every lie I was ever told. Every glance at it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I had been silenced, gaslit, and cast out, but not broken. The story I had told the world wasn't just mine anymore. It had started a wave. Women from across the country began messaging me. Some were strangers. Some were former classmates. Even an old college professor reached out. Each message said the same thing in different words. You made me feel seen. I didn't set out to be a voice for anyone. I just wanted to survive. But something about owning the ugliest truth out loud gave others the courage to face their own. Then came the email that took my breath away. Subject: interview request, The New York Times. I blinked, reread it 3 times. They wanted a full interview, not a fluff piece. A deep dive into the culture of emotional abuse within families masked by perfection, power, and privilege. I was terrified, but I said yes. When the journalist Mara came to the villa, she asked, "Can we sit in the garden? I want this to feel like a conversation, not an interrogation." So we sat under the trellis sunlight filtering through the roses, and I told her everything. Not just the wedding story, but the years before. The subtle dismissals, the punishments, the favoritism, the constant reminders that I wasn't enough. She didn't interrupt. Just took notes, sometimes nodding, sometimes tearing up. After 2 hours, she asked, "What made you stay so long?" I looked at her and whispered hope. Hope that one day they'd finally see me. There it was, my shame, my addiction, the hope of being loved properly. When the interview went live, it exploded. I was on the front page. Headline: The Heir They Disowned, How One Woman Broke Free from a Family Empire. For the first time, people knew the full story. And the messages changed. Now they weren't just about survival. They were about rebuilding. One girl wrote, "I left last week. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch, but I'm free." Another said, "I told my therapist what my dad said to me for the first time. I couldn't have done it without your story." And then there was the woman who simply wrote, "You made me feel brave." I cried reading that one. Because I hadn't felt brave. I'd felt broken, terrified, alone. But maybe bravery is just walking forward anyway. One morning, I stood in the walk-in closet of the villa, staring at the boxes I hadn't opened since I moved in. I pulled out a faded photo album. My childhood. There was one picture me at 9 years old, standing in a ruffled dress at Nathan's birthday party. Everyone was laughing. I was on the edge of the frame, forgotten. I ran my finger over that little girl's face. Then I whispered, "You're not forgotten anymore. You made it out." That weekend, I got another unexpected call. From my aunt, my mom's sister. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. I saw the article, she said. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I just wanted to say, "I believe you. I always did." My knees buckled. She told me stories I'd forgotten. How I used to hide in her car after family dinners. How I'd flinch when my mom raised her voice. How I cried when my dad said I was a waste of tuition. "You were never the problem," she said. Then she added, "Your mom was always afraid of how strong you were, because she never felt strong herself." That stunned me. I'd spent so long making her the villain, I'd never thought about what made her that way. It didn't excuse anything, but it made me curious. Not about reconciliation, not yet, but about generational hurt. Maybe I was the one meant to break it. Later that night, I wrote a letter to my future daughter. I didn't have children yet, but I knew someday I would. And when she was old enough, I'd tell her the truth. That families aren't perfect. That love isn't supposed to hurt. That silence isn't strength. and that the bravest thing she could ever do was speak up when others told her to sit down. I signed the letter and placed it in a sealed envelope, tucked it into the drawer next to the locket. 2 truths side by side, the past and the future. And for the first time in my life, I felt steady. I wasn't running anymore. I was rooted. Weeks passed, but the ripples didn't stop. What started as a birthday dinner betrayal had become a public reckoning, one that no one in my family could hide from anymore. My inbox overflowed. Journalists, advocates, estranged relatives, people from high school who once laughed at me now reaching out with either apologies or excuses. Some offered support. Others were just shocked to learn the truth. But one message stopped me cold. It was from Nathan. The subject line was blank. The body of the email, just 1 sentence. "Can we talk?" For a moment, I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The man who had once slipped a ring on my finger and whispered forever had also destroyed me without flinching. He had stood beside my sister, smug and smiling, while my world collapsed. And now, he wanted to talk. My first instinct was to delete it, to protect the peace I had built like a fortress. But something held me back. Curiosity, closure. Or maybe the last ember of something I hadn't let go. So I replied with a time and date. 1 hour, public place. No surprises. We met at a quiet rooftop cafe in the city. I wore white not as a symbol of innocence, but of clarity. He looked thinner, older. Guilt clung to him like a second skin. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He stood and said softly, "Thank you for coming." I sat down, watching him closely. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence hummed with years of betrayal and pain. Then he said, "I read your article." My expression didn't change. He continued, "I didn't realize how much I broke you. Or maybe I didn't want to." I raised an eyebrow. "And now you do." He nodded. "I thought I was choosing love, but I chose cowardice." He explained how it wasn't planned, that my sister had confided in him and he thought she needed him more than I ever did. "That's the lie I told myself," he said, "that I was doing something noble." I stared at him. "You humiliated me. You watched me break in front of my entire family. You never once looked back." His eyes brimmed. I know. The rage inside me boiled, but oddly so did something else pity. He wasn't the man I had once loved, nor the villain I had painted him into. He was just small and weak and lost. I stood up. "You don't get forgiveness," I said. "Not today. Maybe not ever. But you get truth. You were part of the reason I fell apart. But you're not the reason I rebuilt." I turned to leave, but paused. "Tell my sister I said that she didn't win. She just exposed everything I needed to walk away from." He nodded, defeated. I walked away lighter. That night, I took a long bath in the villa's marble tub, candlelight flickering around me. For the first time in years, I felt clean not from water, but from truth. The next morning, my lawyer called. "The estate matter you were curious about, we have a breakthrough." I blinked. "What do you mean?" Turns out, years ago, my grandmother had written an addendum to her will, a clause that had been conveniently buried until the story exploded. It stated that the granddaughter who embodied strength, independence, and courage would receive the lion's share of her investment properties. Guess who that was? Not Elise, not the golden child. Me. 3 high-rise apartments in Chicago, 2 in Boston, a beach house in Malibu. All mine. My hands shook as I read the full documents. This woman, my grandmother, had seen me, even when I didn't see myself. I sat in the sunroom, tears streaming down my cheeks, whispering, "Thank you. I won't waste this." By evening, every major network was calling. They wanted interviews, panels, guest features, but I declined most of them. Not because I was afraid, but because I was busy building something new. With my inheritance, I started a foundation, one designed to help young women escape toxic family dynamics and rebuild their lives with support therapy and legal aid. I called it the Second Sunrise Foundation, because that's what it felt like waking up after the darkest night and realizing the sky still remembered how to glow. And people noticed. Donors, supporters, even celebrities began to back it. But more importantly, girls started calling. I heard about what you're doing. My dad is like yours. I want out. Do you think I'm worth saving? Every single one I told the truth. Yes. Because if someone had said that to me when I was 15, 18, 22, I might have left sooner. I might have known I wasn't broken, just bruised. And bruises heal. The foundation took on a life of its own. Every week, more young women reached out. Some were barely out of high school. Others were my age, exhausted, emotionally bankrupt, desperate for someone to finally say, "You're not crazy." We offered counseling, legal aid, even emergency housing. Every story was different, but they all carried a common thread. They had been gaslit, abandoned, undervalued. Just like me. One evening, I was reviewing grant proposals in the villa's sunroom when the security intercom buzzed. I wasn't expecting anyone. When the screen flickered on, I froze. My mother, standing outside the gate in a modest dress, clutching a worn-out handbag. Her eyes darted up toward the camera, uncertain, as if she wasn't sure I'd even answer. I didn't buzz her in. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the edge of the balcony where I could see the front gate clearly about 2 stories down. "Why are you here?" I called out. She looked up, startled. "Please, just hear me out." The last time we spoke, she had called me selfish, dramatic. She had told me I had ruined a beautiful moment by making Elise's pregnancy announcement about me. She had laughed when Nathan kissed Elise in front of everyone. She had chosen their comfort over my dignity. And now, she stood in front of my gate like a ghost. "I've made mistakes," she said, "more than I can count." I folded my arms, silent. She continued, "Your article, your foundation. I've seen what you're doing, and I'm ashamed." I still didn't speak. "I let them mold me into someone cruel," she said, voice breaking. I chose the easy path, the one where I didn't challenge what was wrong because it benefited me. Tears streamed down her face now. "I lost you, and that loss, I feel it every day." A long silence followed. "Why now?" I finally asked. "Because I see now who you are," she said, "and I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not a second chance, just to say it out loud. You were right about all of it." My fingers tightened on the balcony rail. I had imagined this moment, dreamed of it even, a confession, an apology. But now that it was happening, it didn't feel victorious. It felt hollow. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I've built something beautiful from your absence, and I'm not giving that up to reopen a wound." She nodded slowly. "I understand." Before she turned to leave, she whispered, "Your grandmother would be proud." That made my chest tighten, but I didn't stop her. Later that night, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman who stared back wore silk pajamas and confidence like armor. But deep inside, she was still the girl who once blew out birthday candles while others plotted her heartbreak. And she'd survived. Not just survived, she'd transcended. The next morning, I got a call from a university. They wanted me to speak at a women's leadership conference. The keynote. The irony was staggering. A girl, who once had no voice, now asked to be the loudest in the room. I accepted. When I walked onto that stage weeks later facing hundreds of young women, I didn't wear designer heels or a statement necklace. I wore my grandmother's brooch, the one she used to pin to her coat when taking me to the park. I told them everything about the betrayal, the public humiliation, the villa, the foundation. But mostly I told them about the moment I chose myself, and the moment after that, and the one after that. Because healing isn't loud. It's not a single scream or breakthrough. It's quiet. It's sitting in your pain and still choosing to get up again tomorrow. When I finished, they rose to their feet, applauding, cheering, and I felt her, my grandmother, the one person who'd always seen me. I walked off stage with tears in my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I was free. I never thought peace could feel so loud. The silence of drama finally gone. The weight of needing to prove myself lifted. And in its place, something I'd never truly had before: stillness. It wasn't perfection. It wasn't fairy tale justice, but it was mine. 2 weeks after the conference, I stood in the garden behind my villa. Florida sun kissing my shoulders, fresh lavender blooming along the walkway. I watched a group of young women laughing on the patio girls we'd helped through the foundation. Survivors, Fighters, just like me. Then my phone buzzed. It was Nathan. I didn't flinch anymore when his name appeared. That told me everything about how far I'd come. I let it ring. Then I listened to the voicemail. "Hi." His voice was low, unsure. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. Elise." She left. Said she couldn't handle the pressure. "Took the baby? I don't know what I expected. But not this." He paused, breathing heavy. "I think I made a huge mistake. I deleted the message before it ended, because I wasn't a mistake, and I wasn't his to rediscover. He had made a choice. My family had too, and I had made mine." My assistant approached a few minutes later, holding a folder. "These are the designs for the Miami Center," she said. "Our second location, twice the size, twice the reach." You know what's funny? I smiled, flipping through the sketches. I used to dream of a family reunion, a wedding where everyone was proud of me. But now, I just want a place where girls don't have to hide their voices to be loved. She nodded. "You built that. From nothing." I looked around the garden at the women, the life, the possibility. "No," I said. "I built it from everything they tried to erase." That night, I walked into my study and pulled out the letter I'd written months ago. The one I never sent. It was addressed to my mother. I opened it, and I read the words aloud for the first time. "I forgive you, not because you asked, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." I tore the letter in half, not out of anger, but closure. As the pieces drifted into the trash, I felt something strange rise inside me. Joy. Unfiltered, pure, unashamed joy. I had built a life beyond the ashes they left behind. A life where my name wasn't whispered, pitied, or shamed, but celebrated. Weeks later, I hosted a gala, a fundraising event, but more than that, a declaration. I walked in wearing a gown made by a local survivor turned designer, my head high, my heels clicking across the marble like punctuation marks to a story only I could have written. Reporters turned, cameras flashed, but the applause wasn't for drama. It was for triumph. Midway through the night, a donor approached me. "Your story," she said, eyes glistening. "It gave me the courage to leave a man who dimmed my light for years." I hugged her, not like a founder, but like a sister, a survivor. Later, as I raised a glass and looked out over the ballroom, I spoke one final truth. "They laughed at me," I said. "They tried to silence me, but their cruelty didn't break me. It built me." The room went quiet, not from discomfort, but reverence. And then slowly the applause began. Soft at first, then rising, not for the girl they once dismissed, but for the woman I had become. And in that moment, surrounded by light, by purpose, by everything they said, I'd never have. I knew. The wedding that never was. It wasn't the ending. It was the beginning of everything.